reach for? Nothing? You getting something? All right.
Mrs. Mackenzie. Thank you, everyone. Welcome once again. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Prime Minister, Roosevelt Scarrett, as well as the Honorable Minister with responsibility for Health, Honorable Kasani Laville, the General Manager of DOMLEC, Mrs. Bertilia Mackenzie. We also have with us Dr. Irving McIntyre, Honorable Melissa Scarrett, Honorable Roland Royer, Senator Kent Edwards, the Cabinet Secretary is with us this morning, as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, and I see Ms. Dennis Edwards, the Financial Secretary. Good morning to you, members of the media. At this point, I invite the Honorable Prime Minister to address us.
Morning, everybody. Morning, press, and all listeners and viewers. Today is the 6th anniversary of the passage of Hurricane Maria. I believe it is a time of reflection for the country on the devastation wrought by this hurricane in Dominica. Significant, unprecedented destruction. There are many who said, and for good reason, that it would have taken us over 20 years to rebuild. We did so in quick time, and rebuilding our lives and livelihoods. It has been very costly in fixing homes, and the sheer amount of funds that was used to clear roads and streets and dredging of rivers and ravines. The number of homes that had to be rebuilt, and schools, health clinics, the funds that had to be spent to keep people at work and in work, paid for by the Treasury, even in the private sector. We paid the salaries of many private sector employees because it was always our view in the government that people needed to go home with a wage and a salary to maintain the dignity of the human being. And so we thank God for his efforts at helping us with our reconstruction and our rebuilding. And I think that we all would accept that this country made tremendous strides in our response to the hurricane. In large measure, we had to expend our own funds in the reconstruction. And luckily for us at the time, we had a significant amount of monies saved that we were able to use immediately to buy food and other supplies and to help people fix their homes and clear the roads and the streets. As you know, we had about $380 million saved. And I was, in fact, saving that money with the intention of paying off our national debt and to reduce our debt to GDP ratio to about 20%. And the intention was to force the government now that all of what we're paying for debt, that would still be continually paid and paid into a special account, so that we always had savings that we could use in terms of natural disasters or to help the economy to withstand external shocks. But obviously we had to use those funds to help people at a particular time. And then we had over $200 million also saved for the construction of the international airport. As you know, we were saving $5 million US every month. And those funds had to be used, and we waited for a long time before we used them. But we eventually had to use the funds to help so many families who were impacted by the hurricane. So we had about $600 million saved at the time of the hurricane, and this is what we were able to use to front load the reconstruction efforts in the country. And so I want us to be in a prayerful and reflective mode in the country that sometimes we, when these disasters come by, we concern and we're each other's brothers, keeper. But once the situation subsides and we're back to a sense of normalcy, then we go back to our ways of appearing to be divisive and divided among ourselves. So the reality is hurricanes are going to come more frequently and more ferociously. That's what the science is saying. And this is why we take our call for the developed world to do more in responding to the impacts of climate change on us. They have made promises in the Paris Agreement. Every COP summit, there are promises made by the developed world. We started off many years ago with they saying, well, they needed to provide us with grants to build mitigation against storms and to build resilience. Then they moved to saying loans, and they moved to green bonds. They moved now to saying that the private sector will do investments. I'm not sure which private sector firm is going to build a sea defense wall or to build a hospital for governments. And really and truly, the developed world is not living up to their expressed and agreed promises. And so we go into COP28. So you tell you how many COP meetings that we've had. And we go to COP28 in December in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. And every time a COP conference comes up, summit comes up, we ask ourselves, should we go? Isn't that a waste of money to go? But you can not give up on fighting against an injustice. If our forebears were to say, well, too many people died in attempts for emancipation, and therefore let us just agree that we will remain slaves for the rest of our lives, we will not be here as free black people or free people in the world. And so it's an injustice that we have to continue to fight. What I always say to Caribbean people in particular is that this must not appear to be a fight only for the government. We must recognize that it must be a fight for all of us to play our part. And there is not this sense that that we in the Caribbean, Dominica included, understand or appreciate or accept the impact that climate change is having and will continue to have on the way of life. And therefore, it's important for us to lend our voices in calling on the international community to play their part in addressing the issues. I mean, of a small country like ours, 226% of your GDP affected. You're an island, so you're not on a continent, and you have many states within your country, or provinces within your country, that one province could help the other if in case a disaster were to happen. We only have ourselves. We get help from friendly governments and institutions, but at the end of it, we only have ourselves. And therefore, it's important for this fight not to be seen to be a government fight, but a fight for all of us to be part of, because this is one of the existential threats to us as a nation. And so I will let us take this moment to reflect on where we were on the morning of September 19, when we woke up to the reality of the impact of the natural disaster, Hurricane Maria, on us. Many gave up, knowing that all of what they worked for was washed away and blown away. And so it is not something that we should lament upon, but it is something we believe that we need to reflect upon and to remind us of the need for us to be grateful as a nation and show gratitude, not to the leaders of the nation, but to the Lord who gives us life and who provides us with whatever we have. And so it's important for us to give reverence to the Lord for his many blessings, because certainly there are many who thought that we will not be where we are today. But by the grace of God, we have made progress and be able to withstand this shock. So So thank you very much, and I do hope that we can engage ourselves in some prayerful reflection. I want first to extend condolences to the family of the infant who was the victim of the unfortunate drowning in Collio yesterday. I know that this is a very devastating loss like no other for his parents and others and other relatives. And I pray for strength and healing for them in this most difficult moment. May God grant them the comfort that they need and the strength that they need to really deal with this tragic loss. And my thoughts and that of my family are with them, and I do intend to visit the family sometime this week. One can only appreciate the grief that they're going through. My prayers and sympathies are also with the family and friends of others who succumbed due to various circumstances over the weekend. We also send condolences to the family of former superintendent of the Methodist Church, Reverend William Watty, who passed away on Sunday. Dr. Watty was a Dominican citizen of great standing who worked as a Methodist minister in Dominica, the Caribbean, and the United Kingdom. May his soul rest in eternal peace. I am very much aware that the thing that is most pressing on the minds of every Dominican is Domlec and load shedding. And this is why I brought in the general manager of Domlec so we can speak to the country about the challenges they're having and what strategies they intend to employ to help alleviate the impact of a drop in generation capacity is having on the country and residents. And of course, I've also invited the Minister of Health who will speak briefly on the issues at the Dominica-China Friendship Hospital. I just met this morning with the board of Domlec to hear from them, because as you know, though Domlec is, the government has much majority shares in Domlec, it still remains a company, and I try not to get involved in the day-to-day management of this company, notwithstanding that the state may own it wholly or partly. But the issue of load shedding is having an impact on the country, and I have taken note of the comments and the discomfort of citizens, and so we are providing the necessary support to Domlec from the government standpoint. And I've asked the board to advise me on the actions that they are going to take in the immediate to address the immediate challenges of load shedding, and what are the recommendations and strategy for the medium term, albeit while we wait for the introduction of geothermal some years down the road. I met with the president of Venezuela on Saturday in Cuba, and I have, on behalf of Domlec, made requests of them for some support. They are in touch with Domlec directly from Saturday, moments after the meeting ended with the president. Venezuela has been in touch with Domlec, and it is the intention of Venezuela to send a team of mechanical and electrical engineers to Dominica tomorrow to assist Domlec in looking at the challenges they're having, and with a view of providing whatever support we will need to address the issue in the immediate term and the medium term. We also discussed with the board and management of Domlec the issue of the procurement of new generators for Domlec to address the situation in the medium term, because I'm sure the general manager will tell you that some of the generators are old, and therefore we need to address this matter in a systemic and constructive manner. And so the manager will speak to these matters, but it is an issue that is taking up my my time, rightly so, and I'll be meeting with the board on a regular basis to receive updates from them to ensure that we can arrest and address the situation of load shedding that's taking place. There are some strategies that DOMLEC will be employing, and I will leave it to the general manager to speak to those technical details. But just to say to the country that I am looking at this and we're doing everything possible. And I said we will assist DOMLEC in procuring generators, because if DOMLEC were to procure those generators themselves, there will be an increase in tariff, an increase in cost to the consumers, and we're trying to mitigate against that. And so the board will advise on what engagement you would like to have with the government in assisting it in procuring those generators. Obviously, these are not generators that you can just buy. They're already available. You can buy them, and even if they're already available, there are some accessories that you would need to procure to allow it to be part of the DOMLEC grid system, generation system. So something like this take a couple of months to get ready, and of course shipping time and so forth. But this is something that we will certainly hear from the board on and take it forward. Obviously, based on what DOMLEC is saying to me, that they have seen an increase in demand. So it's not only because of the heat, but there's an increase in demand because of, I guess, of the growing of the economy and people utilizing more energy. So there's a real increase in demand, and with generators that are old, then you have issues, and of course the hydro situation with the dropping of the water level and so forth. But we will provide all the necessary support to DOMLEC, and we look forward to the team coming in. As a matter of fact, in addition to the Venezuelan team, we worked with DOMLEC to bring in someone who came in yesterday, and that expert is also assisting DOMLEC in looking at the immediate challenges that they're having, and to see what kind of support they can provide to DOMLEC, advice rather, to DOMLEC to addressing it. So we're not going to leave any stone unturned to ensure that we can do everything possible to addressing that issue. It's an issue that is occupying my time, and I'm hoping to meet back with the board and senior management during the course of this week because I've asked that they meet. I met with them last week, and I've asked them to meet again this week so that they can take some firm decisions insofar as what the government can do, because I don't want to assume the management of DOMLEC. I am here to assist from the government standpoint to addressing the situation confronting the country. And of course we have Creole Festival coming up when there'll be a high use of energy, and therefore we have to ensure that we can address those issues way in advance of Creole Festival. Certainly no, but definitely way in advance of Creole Festival. So we do not have the situation occurring and so forth. It is not necessarily a straightforward issue, so I don't want to give anybody the impression that it's a straightforward issue. But every effort will be made to address this issue. So I ask the country to have some patience for the next few days while we work out the challenges and overcoming those challenges. There are many other issues I would like to raise with you, but I believe this is the main issue confronting Dominicans. I wanted to speak to you about the Citizens by Investment Program and some additional actions we're taking. For example, with the engagement of an international firm, accounting firm that we're hoping to conclude negotiations with and sign an agreement with, to come in to do a comprehensive audit of our program, among other actions that I'd like to share with you. But maybe later in the week I can speak to that on this issue, and my visit to the Grotto Home and to the infirmary, and some of the challenges they have and some of the strategies that we're going to be employing from the government standpoint to help them overcome those perennial challenges and to put them on a better footing to be able to provide better and improved care to the residents who reside at those two very important institutions. And there are other things I'd like to speak with you about, but I will invite the General Manager of DOMLEC to share with you and then the Minister of Health, who will speak to you briefly on the hospital. Thank you very much.
Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, Honorable Kasani Laville, Honorable Minister of Finance, and other ministers present, the Financial Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, other government officials, Press Secretary, the media, Dominica, good morning. I know that some members of the media are very happy to be seeing me within quick succession because I spoke to the media on Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, I believe. And just to continue from what I said and just to reiterate what I said, we are facing a generation shortfall due to an aging generation fleet, over 10 megawatts of generation that is in the diesel section past due for retirement, an extremely dry season, and so we are facing a generation shortfall. It bears repeating. What are the solutions? The government of the Commonwealth of Dominica has provided an 800 kilowatt generator, and I said at the press conference that would have been commissioned, it would have been brought online on September 15th, and it was in fact brought online on September 15th. We've also secured, as PM has mentioned, a generation consultant from St. Lucia. I met with him this morning as to his terms of reference, and he has commenced working. It's a consultant by the name of Elford Felix. He's really good, a very good generation background, just in case anybody feels the need to go and research his capability. We are also going to bring on about 3 megawatts of generation from internal sources. DOMLEC has what you call interruptible agreements with some commercial customers where we ask them to get off the grid. That is already in place, and that is about 0.5 of a megawatt, half of a megawatt. We're going to extend that, and we want to bring on very soon 3 megawatts of generation from using generators on island. Additionally, 3 megawatts, of temporary generation will be brought in from out of Dominica. And the purchase, as PM mentioned, of about initially just over 5 megawatts of generation, and then after discussion takes place, we will decide how much more needs to be brought on. One of the things I forgot to mention, but PM ably dealt with that, and that had to do with the assistance from Venezuela, the technical assistance from Venezuela. As a matter of fact, the ambassador did speak to me and asked what exactly the specifics were, and I provided that to him, and that was initiated by PM. Mechanical and electrical engineering expertise from Venezuela coming in tomorrow, Tuesday. And so we're not just not doing anything, a lot of stuff is happening. And as I promised the media on Thursday, we will be meeting with the media more frequently, at least I said twice a week. And I said that, it could be before, that we'll be meeting with the media to keep them apprised of what's going on. And so basically that's what I have to share at this point, and at the right time. Well, through you, I'll take the questions pertaining to Dominic.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Mackenzie, for the update on what DOMLEC is doing to address the very current and pressing issue. As she said, after we've heard from the Minister for Health, we will open the floor for questions, and you're free to follow up with Mrs. Mackenzie. So at this point, I welcome the Honorable Cassani Laville. He's the Minister for Health, Wellness, and Social Services, to provide us with an update on operations at both the main hospital in Goodwill and the Marigot Hospital.
Thank you very much. Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister, Cabinet colleagues, senior government officials, the media, listeners and viewers on various platforms, the Dominicans, all of you, blessings and good morning. Let me also, in the same spirit as the Honorable Prime Minister this morning, let me recognize the strength and the resilience of the good people of this nation. After, well, on the anniversary of Hurricane Maria, it is through these moments that our character, our strength, and our resolve is truly tested. And we have proven a few years later, certainly, that we are indeed a virtuous people and government. It is my pleasure to report that the Marigot Hospital is now opened. Delivery of services under Phase 1 commenced on Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 8 a.m. As part of Phase 1, the hospital offers 24-hour urgent care services from 8 to 4 and on-call services thereafter. Scheduled specialist clinics in the areas of pediatrics, surgery, internal medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, ophthalmology, and orthopedics are being offered by appointment and referral daily from 9 a.m. These clinical services are also being supported by diagnostic laboratory services, X-ray, as well as pharmaceutical support and dispensing of medication. The Dominica Hospital's authority is expected to share soon a schedule of daily clinics. The hospital's authority will also provide all contact numbers for the Marigot Hospital. However, a few important ones are reception 266-2200, the administration office 266-2201, and accident and emergency reception 266-2213. Just for the first week, numerous patients visited the hospital for specialist appointments, and several accessed the 24-hour urgent care facility. Besides the clinical and nursing staff, the hospital is run with support staff such as domestic workers, orderlies, radiographer, pharmacists, and maintenance technicians. We are also pleased to have the presence of police officers as security. The Marigot Hospital will be formally commissioned on the first week of October with an official ceremony. The government is pleased with this significant milestone as it reflects our unwavering commitment to the well-being of our citizens. We are dedicated to ensuring that everyone has access to quality healthcare, and the reopening of the Marigot Hospital will significantly improve access to healthcare in that region. This achievement is a testament to our government's responsiveness to the needs of our people, and we're excited about the positive impact that this will have on the wider community. I will now address at this time recent developments involving a group of medical officers at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital who reported feeling unwell some days last week. On the evening of Monday, September 11th, I was approached by a medical officer from the Dominica China Friendship Hospital who requested a meeting on behalf of a group of medical officers. I consented to their request despite having parliamentary duties at 10 a.m. the following day. Accompanied by the hospital CEO and the hospital medical director, I met with the medical officers at 8 a.m. The representative expressed gratitude for our prompt response and proceeded to outline the various challenges medical officers face in a dynamic environment. The officer emphasized that there appeared to be staffing constraints among the medical officers, thereby causing an environment where those who are on duty are in turn overworked and stressed. The main issue, as expressed by the medical officers, was that the A&E department had 11 officers assigned normally. However, at this time, they were operating with 5 medical officers due to various issues, mostly associated with vacation leave, sick leave, short-term training, and temporary reassignment of a medical officer. The medical officers at the meeting presented the following recommendations to address their challenges. 1. Immediately promote medical interns to medical officers after 4 basic rotations. While the administration firmly believes in the promotion of individuals and upward mobility, this ask is not within our control. Interns are required to complete all rotations, then apply to the medical board for licensure. The medical board is an independent regulatory body. The medical officers were encouraged to ask interns to apply to the medical board. Then the minister may ask the board to convene a special meeting for assessment. It must be noted, however, there are many considerations in granting licenses, and it is not unusual for the medical board to propose extension of internship period if or where identified. The second recommendation was for a specific medical officer to return to the A&E department of the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. This medical officer has categorically indicated that he wants to continue his reassignment duties at the Marigot Hospital. The next recommendation was to upgrade 3 medical officers on staff to specialists in their respective fields. I have been advised that management has been in dialogue with the officers since August 2023. To that end, and assessments are currently ongoing. Another suggestion was to consider employment of retired medical officers. 3 were named. We proceeded to report that one of the 3 recommended had already been engaged by the hospital on sessional basis. The other officers have not indicated interest to work at the hospital. There are ongoing efforts to engage other retired medical officers, either from the public system or those who previously worked privately. The meeting was further invited to propose names of officers known to be interested in working. However, notwithstanding the expertise and experience that can benefit the health system, attention must be paid to health and fitness, continuing medical education, commitment and availability of these retired officers. Another recommendation from the group of medical officers was the possible closure of health centers in the Marigot Health District as an option to avail more doctors to the hospital system. This action would, however, place the health system at a considerable disadvantage. Primary health care plays a crucial role in providing accessible, preventative health care and also comprehensive care. Among the many benefits of having functioning health care includes accessibility to care, prevention, and early intervention, continuity of care, and the relevant cost implications. We must always think along the lines of comprehensive health care that aims to maintain a balance between primary and secondary health care, ensuring optimal health outcomes for individuals and communities alike. Notwithstanding, we recognize there are opportunities for improving the use of resources within the system. As it stands, there is a minor cases unit embedded in the Accident and Emergency Department of the hospital. Essentially, the hospital is providing a primary healthcare service at the Accident and Emergency Department to address issues like headaches, earaches, rashes, and the common cold. That is why we are embarking on a drive to greater sensitize the public on the use of hospitals versus healthcare centers so as to distribute traffic with more equity, decrease waiting times at the A&E department, and improve patient outcomes. In addition to these recommendations from the medical officers, we further sensitize them on other initiatives geared at improving their overall circumstance. One area was the engagement of returning medical officers and specialists. Just last week, 2 medical officers were engaged by the system. This is 1 neurosurgeon and 1 pathologist. We have been in talks with an additional medical officer who will likely commence this week. Another initiative is to increase the staff complement by fostering more technical cooperation with bilateral partners. We have been actively pursuing this throughout the year. As a matter of fact, by the end of this year, we expect to have 3 additional radiologists and 2 sonographers to support radiology and imaging. 3, the doctors were sensitized on an ongoing internal restructuring exercise. This was geared at restructuring of the medical department to strengthen upward mobility, leadership and management functions, job descriptions, selection, and the overall recruitment process. I've been advised that a recommendation to appoint medical officers based on available vacant positions within the structure is complete and will be submitted sometime later today. Another important initiative is the adjustment of short-term contracts by some medical officers up to July 31st, 2024. Thereafter, 2-year contracts will be offered after the initial period of assessment of medical officers. Actually, this recommendation was offered by the ministry in a joint meeting just a few weeks ago with a representative of the medical officers, the Dominica Hospital Authority, and the Public Service Union. Management at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital has been in dialogue with officers with respect to the settlement of all gratuity payments on a payment plan. This will commence as soon as all terms have been agreed. In the spirit of resolving these matters with the greatest respect and efficiency, a human resource officer has been hired a few weeks ago to support HR on special assignment to treat with these matters. We implored the medical officers to be patient with the process of strengthening as the focus and efforts have been materializing. We ask specifically for calm in the next 2 weeks, especially as we expected by then to have at least 3 new medical officers available, and that some doctors would return from their approved sick leave. There was also a suggestion for further meetings to provide updates on the overall process. Notwithstanding the ongoing efforts, the group of medical officers, in large measure, reported sick for 2 days. One of them submitted a certified sickness absence for an entire month. As is expected, some services were in fact interrupted. On Wednesday, September 13th, services continued except for surgery, which was cancelled due to certified sick leave by officers prior. On Thursday, September 14th, services continued except for internal medicine outpatient clinics. On Friday, September 15th, most staff, other than those on certified sick leave, reported to work. Over the weekend, including Saturday and Sunday, 16th and 17th, on-call services had been covered. Staff had in fact reported to work. On Monday, September 18th, today, all wards are covered, everything is stable, outpatient clinics continue. I want to thank in a special way the doctors who have steadied the ship on Wednesday and Thursday of last week particularly. Notwithstanding the unavailability of a grouping, they have remained committed to ensure they fill in the gap as much as possible to ensure that our citizens receive care. They have had a very difficult 2 days, but they have met the obligation and showed tremendous reason and compassion in that time period. I wish to also thank the district medical officers in primary healthcare who have also come forward to support the medical officers at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital in this period. They too have showed tremendous sacrifice by serving the districts as normal and then also assisting at the A&E departments, therefore doubling up their duties. This period is one requiring continuous focus, deliberate and urgent actions. Therefore, I would like to again call for calm and good judgment. As the Minister for Health, my responsibility lies with the people of this nation. While I am committed to addressing the concerns of the doctors, it is imperative for all parties involved to be reasonable. From the actions of the 13th, I reached out to the medical officers to express my disappointment of the recent actions, and we scheduled a second meeting to discuss matters further. I believe in the importance of open dialogue, and I am committed to finding long-term solutions that serve the best interest of both the medical officers and the public. Once again, I want to assure you, the public, that we are facing this situation head-on and will do everything necessary to maintain continuity of quality healthcare services. I have faith in the dedication and professionalism of our healthcare professionals, but emphasize the need for collective responsibility and decision-making based on the best interest of our patients. Thank you for your attention, your understanding, and your continuous support as we take the bold steps required to improving healthcare and service to all in Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lavelle, for his comprehensive update and report. I'm sure Carla is quite pleased with the detail provided. I know you have follow-up questions. At this point, we're open to questions. You may pose your questions to the Honorable Prime Minister, Mrs. Mackenzie, and of course the Honorable Lavelle. Carla is already on his feet as usual. Yes, Mr. John Baptist.
Yes, to the Honorable Prime Minister, I want to ask, what was specifically discussed between CARICOM leaders and the Cuban president during the sideline meeting of the G77 and China summit? Also, we want to find out, as it relates to the IRC, what is really going on? Are they a government institution? Because the information that is forthcoming is that this seems to be the one blocking and preventing Domlec from, purchasing the generators that is so required. We need some update on that, Honorable Prime Minister. And also, the hospital is without a board. You've said a lot, Mr. Minister, but the hospital is without a board. You need to address us on that, please, sir. Thank you.
Well, yes, as you know, I attended and addressed the summit of G77 plus China that was held in Cuba. And on the sidelines of that meeting, CARICOM had an interface with the President of the Republic of Cuba. The number of issues that were discussed, obviously the upcoming General Assembly and the issues at hand to be addressed. Climate change was an area of focus as well. Recognizing the change in the climatic conditions. It's hotter, and it's hot everywhere in the world, which is a clear sign that climate change and the impact of climate change is active. And of course, we spoke about the international financial system and access to resources to addressing a number of those issues. And what is going to be our strategy going into COP28 from a developing world standpoint? What are the arguments we're going to put forward? And of course, the discussion on Haiti and the current situation in Haiti and what can we do or continue to do to really try to bring some level of law and order in Haiti so that the humanitarian crisis can be addressed by being able to bring in humanitarian support. So these are some of the broad issues that we discussed with the President of Venezuela during our meeting on the sidelines of the G77 plus China summit. In respect to IRC, it's almost like you have me holding the blade, you know. So I'll be careful what I say, you know. But the reality is, I know that there have been some discussions in the past between the IRC and Dominic in respect to Dominic changing his generators. And based on what I've been told, that the IRC had concerns about the impact it's going to have on consumers, and IRC may have been of the view that some of the generators could still go longer with some maintenance and so forth. The reality is, I personally believe, and of course this is a matter for the board to determine and for management to advise the board and for the experts that are bringing in who will assist Dominic on this. We believe that Dominic should seriously look at procuring generators. And we believe that we should have about 10 megawatt of new generators to serve the medium term and even a standby in the future. And so it's a matter for Dominic now to meet as a board and management to examine that issue. Obviously, it may not be done in one shot, but it could be done incrementally, because there's no doubt that Dominic has to address the medium-term challenges of generation of electricity in Dominic. While we await the coming on stream of geothermal. And so, as I said, I'm not taking over the management and oversight of Dominic. I am here as Prime Minister to support Dominic, because this has escalated into a national security issue. And when things escalate into such matters, then the Prime Minister has a duty and obligation to get involved. And this is what I've been doing. So we will address the IRC issue. The IRC has a role to play under law, and it will play that role. But the reality is, I don't think there's any option other than procuring those generators. And IRC will do what it has to do, but as Prime Minister, I also will do what I have to do, because I have a greater responsibility to the country. And everybody will play their role, but we have to work on this particular issue. And just to say that, just confirm there will be 3 experts from Venezuela who will come in tomorrow. So they've identified those persons, and they'll fly in tomorrow to join the one person who is already from St. Lucia, who will examine the situation for us and give us some quick recommendations on how we can address the situation in the immediate and certainly in the medium term.
Yeah, but that's where, Curtis Matthew, by the way, that's where my next question was coming to, in terms of the technicians from Venezuela arriving down here tomorrow. I want to find out what will be their terms and reference as they arrive tomorrow. Are they going to be working alongside the technicians we have in Dominica? What exactly are they going to be doing? And Mrs. Mackenzie, can you assure the Dominican public that by this month or next month or before the end of the year, relief will come their way? Can you say categorically that these problems will be resolved before the end of the year? And Mr. Health Minister Cassani Laville, you've told us certain things about the situation with the medical doctors at the hospital, the medical personnel. It appears that is a crisis that's on. Are you concerned about what is going on right now? And will that matter escalate further? Can you give us the assurance that that matter will be under control very soon? Thank you very much. I will come back strongly in the second round.
So Curtis, you were asking regarding the terms of reference for the, okay. Basically what we did was to send to the ambassador the issues that we've been having with some of the units, the failures, the types of failures that the units have suffered, and the status of each of the generating units. And as I must be specific, the diesel generating units. And out of that, he would have sent it to Venezuela and gotten experts in that field to deal with that. So they will be working alongside the guy we have here, Elford Felix, the one from St. Lucia, as well as our mechanical engineers or electrical engineers and our technicians. What will they be doing? They will be assessing the state of the diesel generating units at Sugarloaf and at Fonkole. Your second question had to do with assuring the public that by the end of the year that we would, can you exactly repeat yourself so that I can?
Just to find out from you, by this month, by the end of this month or end of the year, that Dominicans will get relief, that the problems will be rectified by then. Can you assure the public, yes, by November, the problems will be over? Well, anyone this November, December, might be.
I expect some measure of relief by the first week of October, some measure of relief. And certainly, by the end of the year, certainly greater relief than what they will experience by October. That's what I will see. But certainly a great deal of measure of relief by the first week of October, if we get these units, and we expect to get them, because they are government associated generators, 3 megawatts of that. So certainly we can.
You said some measure of relief? That's what you said, some?
Yes, because Curtis, just 10 megawatts of, and I must repeat that, of generation that are past due for retirement. And you can bring them on now and you work them a lot, depending on what happens with the hydro. And they fail because of some factor. Okay? And we can also pray for rain so we can get the hydro.
Mrs. McKenzie, good morning. Not stick around still.
Yeah, oh, I'm staying around.
All right, thank you. Any idea, I know you've been asking for generators for some time. Stand. Sorry. Any idea why you've been blocked by the IRC for not giving the generators that you need?
Okay, I would say, and I think PM answered that the IRC, when it looks at a request for increased generation, will look at several factors, and the regulator would have determined what are some of the reasons why it was not prepared, to bring in generation at a particular point in time. But the Prime Minister of the country has spoken, and I think we should listen and go forward from there.
Who should listen? IRC?
Don't you think you should be addressing the IRC? Or asking the IRC that question? I would not want to speak for the IRC. I try not to speak for person. I try to speak for DOMLEC. And what I can say to you, I have 10 megawatts of generation, which is past due for retirement.
Okay. And you made it very clear.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Yeah, well, as Tomaga said, you would have gotten some generation from the hydro. In the first instance, you had a rupture to it because of a landslide, and then you have a drop in rainfall, and therefore the drop in its ability to generate hydro electricity to pass into the grid. Plus, you have some generators that are too old and which require regular maintenance. So you have to find a time where you can get them off the grid and service them, but you do not have backup to allow you to do that without any disruption. So what the board and management has suggested is that government has certain generation capacity, meaning it has some standby generators. So what we did in the first instance, I believe in May or June, I authorized for DOMLEC to take ownership of a generator we had at the stadium, which would provide 0.8 megawatts of generating capacity. So they have taken that. Is that coming on stream?
Yeah, it was brought online on Friday.
Yeah, it was brought on Friday because obviously they had to buy some accessories to add to it to cause it. So 0.8 has been added to this. So we have another generator at the stadium. Financial center has generating capacity. The hospital has generating capacity. And so the intention is to get some of these entities, state entities, off the grid and self-generate so that you do not have the load on the system. Dominic has had an arrangement with private sector suppliers. So for many years, we would have utilized RUS. For many years, 10, 15, 20 years, utilized RUS. Either they generate and pass on the grid or they get off the grid so that you can address those issues of the drop when the hydro would have been affected. So there are some private sector entities that Dominic is engaging with to get off the grid, generate, and also send back on the grid as well, so that you have, they self-generating, but they also supplying the grid, so you have additional capacity on Dominic. So the idea for us is, government standpoint, to provide any technical support to Dominic, is to get, and we're not, it is to complement or to assist the existing staff, not to displace them or to set them aside. It's to come in to assist them in identifying what can be done in the immediate to help alleviate the load shedding situation, if not eliminate it completely going forward. So if you give us a few days, let the team come in. Work has started, the first gentleman who is there. The Venezuelans will come in tomorrow, God's willing. They'll be working 24 hours a day to look at the situation, what needs to be done. Once we get those recommendations from those teams, then Dominic will seek to implement those recommendations to alleviate the situation in the immediate. Now, in the medium term, it is clear that generators must be purchased. I had already given Dominic the go-ahead to order a 2 megawatt based on their advice and so forth, as the majority shareholder, megawatt. And so we will assist, we prepare to assist Dominic in the procurement of some of the generators. Once all of the technical details are dealt with, and of course, I met with the board this morning, and I said to the board that they need to take the board needs to meet and to take a decision on what needs to be done in the medium term to address the issue. Then we can have a conversation because there's a board, Dominic is a company, and so forth. So we are here, and I am here as Prime Minister to assist Dominic in addressing the situation of generation of electricity in Dominica. And so we are working on all fronts. I can also tell you that I made a request of 20,000 barrels of diesel from the government of Venezuela. And all efforts are being made to have those sent to Dominica, so that that can be made available to Dominica if Dominica wants to buy it at a lower than market rate, so that the cost of energy to consumers remain at a lower rate and not increase. So once we get the report from the Venezuelans, I believe that we'll be in a much better position to determine the issues there and what needs to be done, what additional action needs to be taken to ameliorate the current situation in Dominica. So I think, give us this week, let the team come in, and I believe that we should be in a position to take
I'm
that.
very happy to hear you say, Prime Minister, IRC have spoken and the Prime Minister has spoken, meaning you have the final word. Now, is there a conflict between the IRC and the government? Because I hear the word independent regulatory commission, which it means that they're independent. Yes.
Yeah, well,
Or they're supposed to be.
Well,
So now the Prime Minister has given a final word. That's just what I want to hear from you. So we have electricity.
Well, we have an independent regulatory commission, and they would determine the tariffs and so forth to be determined to be charged by Dominic. There is no doubt that this matter has been escalated, and it is absolutely important that the government intervenes. And this is what the government is doing. I'm not displacing the management and the board of Dominic. I do not want to do that. But this matter is affecting every single citizen in our country. And if a matter is affecting every single citizen in our country, then the Prime Minister has to act, and the Prime Minister will act. So the IRC has a role to play, and the Prime Minister has a role to play, and the Prime Minister will exercise his function as Prime Minister of the country on this matter. So I hope my response satisfies your question.
It did. Thank you.
It did. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Carla, you mentioned that the hospital is without a board, and you asked for feedback on the same. Just to let you all know that the tenure of the board would have elapsed on July 31st of this year. Okay, and we are actively engaging in a process of discussions, detailed discussions with all the members of the board. So far, I have personally held discussions with 5 out of the 8 members on the board. And one of the things that we are looking at clearly is to ensure that the philosophy of every member on the new board aligns with the overall policy direction of the government. I wish to place on record my sincere thanks for the previous board for working in a very difficult period to transition where the secondary healthcare was then part of the direct government purview, and now we have moved over to an authority. And many times I can say that we may have in fact not really reflected, as a people on the challenges that are in place, that are inherent with such a major transition, where you have over 600 people working at a hospital. As we move forward, there are many different priorities. And for me, one priority would be the people, the employees at the hospital. And the whole issue, why I am here today, because we are, one, providing an update on the opening of a new hospital, which is a priority to expand care and services, and also to the general feeling and sentiment of our clinicians at the hospital. So with so many staff in our hospital system, we have to ensure that we prioritize the people issues, the conditions under which people work and operate, to ensure and assure that they continue to provide quality health care for people. And I will go further to say that we will, by next week, institute a new board at the hospital. Also to say that they are not merely meant to operate as an executive, truly, but there's a CEO at the hospital. Since May, we have had a new CEO, new chief executive, and someone who has a rich and solid background in standard operating procedures and systems and procedures. And someone also, too, from my interactions with her, has compassion. And it is why that from speaking with the medical officers, they have in fact stated directly to me and to her that they are in fact happy to be working with this CEO, and they in fact believe that she's on their side. As it relates to the question where I was asked, is there a crisis at hand, and can I give the assurance that this will not happen again?
Escalate.
Oh, it will not escalate. Pardon me. We do not have a crisis on hand. A crisis, in my view, and possibly by definition, would largely be a situation where we do not have much understanding of what is going on, a situation where we have little to no control of the outcomes, and we do not have a situation on hand as such. We clearly understand the situation that we are confronted with. We understand the issues faced by the medical officers. And in fact, what I believe was the greatest challenge is that we need to communicate more. Because over the past year, we have in fact, as a ministry and hospital authority, been focusing on the environment and the issues that are being confronted by the medical officers. Notwithstanding, it would appear that many do not know. And this is an area where I firmly believe that we need to improve. Because out of their 5 recommendations, while of course there were some that were not practical, but many of them align with the plans of the government, and also they were assured that many of the things that they recommended were in fact things that we have been actively working on to improve their circumstance. As a matter of fact, by the end of this month, even issues related to salaries, which they did not raise in the meeting, their circumstance will be improved largely for many of them, particularly those who are appointed. And I'm understanding that they may in fact receive at least $900 increase by the end of the month. And for others who are on contract, the situation will change after the review process is done with the contracts for the next cycle of engagement. So I think fundamentally this really is the issue. We have tremendous compassion for the medical officers and the staff. I'm sensitive to many of the issues. When I look at them and I speak to them, I see them as young, progressive people, largely. People who have studied for years, 7 years to 10 years, and who have chosen to return to Dominica. And we will do all we can as a government. I will do all I can as a young person who identifies in them to improve their circumstance as much as possible. And I do not believe that this will escalate, because there are open lines for communication. We have been meeting actively, and we have been addressing many of the issues. And like I'm saying, the issues are not new to us, hence the reason why we already have solutions unfolding now, because we did not just start working last week. We're at the point of results, and that's why I asked for the indulgence to get the results. These doctors are very reasonable, and by way of their code of ethics, they are aware of their responsibility to have some form of beneficence and the responsibility to non-maleficence, to ensure also that patients are not at risk by any of the actions. And I know and I trust that we'll continue to work and resolve all issues that we are confronted with.
Coming in a second bite. Again, there seems to be some issue with NEP workers. Some of them have not gotten paid yet, and they seem to be saying, when will they get paid? So they asked me to ask that question on their behalf. Someone also asked, wants to know, as it relates to the national debt, what's the country's national debt? And a third person is asking a very interesting question. It is my understanding, repackages, that when Liat was in effect, the main airline for handling mails was Liat. Under the new agreements, Air Antilles was the one, but since Air Antilles seems to have gone into liquidation at about July 2023, the post office is now stagnant ever since the liquidation. What are the measures taking place to deal with that situation as it relates to services?
I find the bouncers coming. The bowling is very rough. I have to go on the back foot there. You know, in respect to the NEP workers, there are different categories of NEP engagement. So there are people who work in the private sector. There are people who work in the government system, the public sector. And there are people who work in the beautification program, and there are those who also engage under the as caregivers to various senior citizens across the country. Those who work in the private sector, those who work in the public sector, and many of them who are caregivers, they are paid by direct debiting of their accounts at their respective financial institution. So they're paid just like all the public servants who get paid on a monthly basis. So we don't issue a check to you the monies are sent into a designated account and so forth. So we do not have issues with these people at all. Then with respect to the those who are in the beautification and program, those who are doing a fantastic job in keeping our country clean and beautiful, and these are some of my best people. They are paid via the village councils. So the monies will be sent to the village council every month, and then they'll be paid by the councils. In some councils, they're paid in cash. And so we're trying to eliminate that practice and get everybody to be paid direct debiting of their accounts at the respective credit unions or financial institutions. So a decision was taken to get that going. Some councils were very quick in reconciling the list with the NEP coordinator, and others were a bit slow in doing that. So those who were slow in doing that, some of the NEP people would not have gotten paid on time. What happened in some councils had extra money of government. So this is the way we're trying to avoid situations where councils have more than what they should have gotten. So there's some councils that were able to pay people with the monies that they have left over from the previous month. And so we're trying to reduce on those practices and to ensure that that we pay people who are actually on the payroll and who are actually working. So we're trying to eliminate the sending out the money to the various councils for onward payments to the council. So there was a transitionary period for that. And so that once that is addressed, they won't have any challenges going forward. They'll be treated as salaried workers, as we normally do with the other section of the NEP. So that's the issue there. The issue, and that's what, while I'm on this, Carla, if you allow me, I just wanted to speak to the issue of the new salary structure for the public service. As announced by the Minister of Finance in the 2023-2024 budget, the government of Dominica has approved recommendations coming from the completed organizational review and reclassification of the public service. So I am pleased to announce that as of this month, September, the new salary structure approved by the Cabinet will come into effect. Under the new structure, salaries for employees at all levels will be increased, with the exception of level 1, which remains unchanged. This means that just over 2,940 public officers will benefit from the new salary structure in the first phase, resulting in an overall increase of 6%, with some public officers benefiting from up to 13% increase in salaries. This will result in an increase in the government wage bill by an estimated $9 million annually. So the question of who will benefit as of this September by this new measure, we are talking about many of our essential service providers, our teachers and principals, public police officers, fire officers, doctors, nurses, environmental health officers, and others who serve on the front line of the public sector, providing key services to members of the public at critical times. And so I am pleased to announce that from this month end, these public officers and their families will be better off and better able to take care of their commitments. Again, this reflects the government's policy to do all it can, even in a difficult economic period, to improve the lives of all our citizens. And so the question of the national debt, as it stands now, is about 100% of GDP, and it's going down as the economy grows and you reduce on your debt, then they certainly will see a reduction on this, and so forth. So that's where it stands. The issue of packages and the post office the world over are having challenges. They were created in a particular time, and time has changed in a dramatic manner. Okay, and I know that the post office have had discussions with their international partners on how they can reposition themselves in the new dispensation. to allow them to be able to provide new and added services to the public and so forth. So I think it's work in progress, and they have to refocus themselves, because the reality is most of us don't write letters anymore, and therefore delivering mails to you is now a historical issue, and so forth. But it is something that we have to look at. This is where I believe the private sector entities can come in, because really and truly this new dispensation requires more private sector such services. There are some locals doing it, and I think that we need to expand on it so that those services can really be done by private sector entities. I've just been advised that I should, in the public officers will be affected in terms of the salary increases, that customs officers, and inland revenue officers will benefit as well. So a significant number of public officers, and I know that the public servants have been working all weekend with the Treasury to ensure that all of the administrative matters are put in place, so that come this September, that the salaries can in fact reflect an increase in so forth, in the salaries and so forth. Yeah. Kale, I'm sorry, Mark, please.
Yes, perhaps there's a lot of concern, and I just want to read from a question you sent me, that the Dominican economy is facing some challenges. And sources reveals that very soon, public officers, and you just mentioned, I'm happy to hear, may not be able to be paid. And the health system is falling apart. NEP workers not being able to get paid. Dominican travelers to the UK experiencing unusual scrutiny. CBI funded projects are experiencing financial difficulties. It's also a comment here that Mr. Vince Henderson, who seemed to have been targeted to succeed the Prime Minister, seemed to have been falling out of favor at this time. And he's not even allowed to act as Prime Minister. Any comments on those comments there?
Sure. The issue of the challenges that Dominica faces is no different from the rest of the world. You come from two major natural disasters, 2015, 2017. Then when you overcoming those, the COVID-19 came in for about 2 or 3 years. Then here comes the Russia-Ukraine war. The government has had to subsidize and to cushion the impact of the rising cost of energy and food supplies to the country. We have not introduced any new taxes, rather we have reducing taxes in the country. We continue to ensure that we provide for the less fortunate among us, and to provide support to the private sector in advancing economic efforts in the country, whether it's through hotel construction or the purchase of businesses and expansion of businesses, whether it is to provide additional space for Clare Harbour in Portsmouth to provide employment opportunities, and they're now looking for an additional 200 people to be employed on top of the 300 that they currently have. Whether it is to purchase Domlec, so that the government now can work with Domlec to acquire additional assets and ensure that it can cushion the impact of increased energy to the public. Right? Talking about increasing the tax threshold, the VAT threshold from 100 kilowatt units to 150, and also removing VAT on fuel surcharge, and all of these things are recurrent revenue reductions, and so forth. And you're talking about increasing staff at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital to ensure we provide better and improved care to people. The number of the doctors, we have, for example, for a country like Dominica, to have 4 orthopedic surgeons employed is way too much per capita. To have 4 gynecologists employed is way too many for our population, and taking into consideration the number of births in our country. But we have those there employed. People don't talk about those things. You were talking about more fire officers, more police officers. We have about 50 or so special constables employed to provide additional support to the police. because of the increased demand on the police and so forth. So you can go on and on of the number of areas. What is the allowance for 65 and over, or assisting students to study overseas, or road improvements, housing construction, whatever it is, you can name it. You have those issues there that you have to address. You heard from the Minister for Health about the health system. I mean, I believe that the health professionals, and I've said so to them privately, and I'll say so publicly, that they have to defend themselves. Because the criticisms I'm hearing from the public, it has to do with the delivery of healthcare services. And so it is left to them to stand up and say, well, what you guys saying about us is not true. And I don't think it is true. We all have had family members who go to the hospitals and health clinics and receive the care. And generally, by and large, people get good service at the hospital. We have the best medical facilities that we had in our entire history. We have more specialist doctors at the disposal of Dominicans than we had in every time of our history. We have more equipment and diagnostic services any time in our history. To say that the health services is crumbling is an unfair and malicious statement to make. And we have to be very careful that we don't put that in the minds of Dominican people who, when they get sick, will not want to go, while the rest of people who have access to other means will go and get it, and those who really need it will stay at their homes because of what people are saying that are not true about the health services. This is a dynamic system. Every time there is something that you need to improve, every time there is a service that you need to look at. So it's a dynamic system. It's not static. It is fluid, and so forth. But we cannot go to the hospital and that one time we get a little soups from a nurse, then we use that to categorize the entire delivery of healthcare services. I lived with a nurse for many years, and I know what nurses have to deal with to provide care to people. People used to come to home at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I understand that if a nurse is at the accident and emergency and she's seeing people all day long and everybody believes that his or her issue is the most urgent, of course the nurse is going to get a little bit grumpy. Of course they're going to get a little bit anxious and frustrated. And of course the nurse may say something to you that ordinarily he or she may not say to you. But for us to say that the place is complete, we talk about there are no supplies at the hospital. When I speak to CMS, CMS say no. There is the issue of a particular suture that they need, that they have other supplies or such, but there's a particular one that they may not have, but they have others. You may have 5 different medications that you can prescribe to a patient, but the one the doctor may prescribe may not be available. But there are 4 others that you can prescribe. And I think what we need to do is to find a way of having this on the system so a doctor can go on the system and to see what is available and prescribe a medication. So it's a matter of we having to work to make something work. Because I mean, at the end of the day, even if we have health insurance, we first must go to Dominica before we are sent by air ambulance out of Dominica. So let us not curse the candle in the darkness, rather than praising it and thanking it. And so we have to be very careful that we don't put in the minds of our people. We've made tremendous progress with the help of international partners. And when you compare the Dominica China Friendship Hospital now to what the PMH was some years ago, it's a chalk and cheese. And we're not boasting. Neither are we bringing down anybody. But there are not many places in the Caribbean you will see that quality of healthcare facility. You know, and the quality of medical professionals and nurses. I mean, the nurses are extremely committed. We have a challenge like every other country has, where nurses are being poached by larger countries. Who are we to compete with Her Majesty's Treasury? Or the U.S. Treasury in terms of being able to pay nurses and to things. And the reason why the UK is poaching nurses from us because the countries in the Middle East are poaching the nurses because they can pay them more. And that's what happened. It's a cycle that's going on. So they poach from the UK poach from us. And therefore we have to train. And this is why we're saying to the UK and Canada and the United States, well, help us train more so that If we train 10 and you take 2, it's okay. But all of his nurses we train them. There are many of them who we send to Jamaica to train, and we paid for that, and they get recruited by the UK. They figure it's a greener pasture, but they only go in there because the British people or the American people won't work in certain districts, and so they're available. But I just want to caution us against crying doom and gloom over a situation where there's no doom and gloom. Do we need to continue improving? Of course you need to improve. Unless we're dead, you will not have to. You'll not stop having to improve something. You're only dead. But as long as you're on the earth, something will come up that you have to address and so on. And rather than we making time to address it, I see there are people here and people overseas who are praying and hoping that the hospital will come to a halt. And sometimes I go to the hospital, I see them there, they're enjoying the service. Their family are enjoying the service. They don't send them anywhere else except the PMH. And so let us not look at the situation and chastise it and denigrate it when this really is unfortunate that we're doing that. What is our motivation? And those who I hear criticizing and creating and calling doom and gloom, they have no sensible recommendations. They have no sensible recommendations. The CMS buys medication, it sells it to private doctors and private facilities, in some cases at cost. So when you buy stuff and you sell it, sometimes you don't have it. You may not have enough to think. And I've said to the Ministry of Health that the CMS is not involved in private sector engagement. It's a public sector facility. And its only mandate is to buy for the public health facilities. And the selling of stuff to other people outside of providing the hospitals and health centers should not be allowed. So that we do not run short or low in stock of anything in the country. And when it comes to healthcare, this government has been known to be the government of healthcare. We have transformed healthcare services in Normal. You open the migrant hospital and they want to create a problem with it. As if we want it to remain closed indefinitely. Instead of saying, okay, well, yeah, let us start, let us roll, let us go. This is why I commend this doctor. What's his name? Dr. Elick. I met him sometime at the A&E. Great spirit. That's the spirit that we almost have. And the guy has just been asked, can you go to Marigot to help? And he's graciously agreed to go. And even when people tell him you should go, he said, no, I want to go. I want to go to Marigot. So if nobody wants to go to Marigot, how are we going to provide the medical services to people in Marigot? And then because these things happen, we say it's doom and gloom. Because some doctors may not be happy with the terminal condition, we say doom and gloom. The nurses and doctors have been striking in the United Kingdom for the last year. Asking for improved conditions of work. And we have Caribbean people, nurses and doctors, going there to work. We have many parts of the United States where you don't have people who want to go and work as nurses and doctors because it's a dangerous neighborhood, or it's a black neighborhood, or it's an impoverished neighborhood, and people are not going to work there. And so they recruit us to come and work in those places. So let us speak truth to power, as some of you like to say. Let us speak truth to power. Is the system perfect? No. Do we have a utopian system? No. But do we have a system in crisis? No, we don't. We don't. So there's something I can talk about. I'd rather not talk about it publicly, about my observations and my concerns. And I share those with people who I meet. But I don't agree with that. The issue of the CBI projects and difficulties. But there is an attempt by some in this country. I wanted to address this issue earlier, but I give deference to the Dominic issue. But later this week I'll address it frontally. But there continues to be an attempt by some in this country to destroy the CBI. And so they are colluding with international journalists and some regional journalists to propagate a lot of mischief, misinformation about our program, all in an effort to destroy it. And some people are part of this in Dominican just because they want to get the Labour Party out of government. Now, when you get the Labour Party out of government, and God forbid you to come into government, and you destroy the CBI, what's going to happen? A program that underwrites a significant part of our economic and social development. A program that is underwriting the full cost of the National Employment Program. Close to $5 million every month. A program that has been used to build thousands of homes, improve healthcare, help with national security, help with diversifying the economy and growing the economy in agriculture and tourism with the building of hotels. A program that is constructing the international airport and which will construct the marina to create economic opportunities in our country. And there are some of us in this country who are benefiting from it and who are in the same vein seeking to join forces with international people who would like to see this country brought down to its knees and no source of funding from the CBI so that they can say, there it is. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. And so, and so it is not, and we have to condemn it as Dominicans. And so you'll see in the next few days and weeks, also stories being written about Dominica, CBI, and all these things. You know, in our case, we are taking action. There are a number of actions that we've taken to improve the management and the oversight of the program. I have said earlier we are in discussions with an international accounting firm who will engage. I made an announcement in Parliament some weeks ago that we will engage an international firm who will come in and do a comprehensive auditing of our program. And in the next few days, we should be in a position to finalize with this international firm, and I'll be in a position to name that firm who will come in to assist us. We have changed the legislation, and we're going to be bringing additional legislation to make it more difficult for citizens to change their names, which has been a concern for our partners. So we're taking all of the actions that need to be taken to safeguard the integrity of our program. Interviews of all applicants have been going on since July. So everybody who's applying for CBI program must go for an interview. That's been done from July, from mid-July, and it'll continue. So there are a number of actions we've taken. We've never professed to have a perfect system, but we have professed to have a robust system that we go through different layers of due diligence. And if somebody were to become a citizen of Dominica today, and tomorrow morning the person goes and does something and finds himself in problem with the law, you can't blame the program for that. There are many Dominicans who got green cards who are in jail in America, so you blame the green card program for that? No. Nobody blames the green card program for this. If after you become a citizen of America, you find yourself in a problem, there's nothing wrong with the American citizenship program or your path to citizenship. That's to do with the personal behavior of the individual. And so we can't link it to our program. Somebody gets it tomorrow morning they commit a crime or something like that. They can't link it to that. So my urge to Matt is that this is our country. We may not agree with everything the government does, and I don't expect everybody to agree. Not even in the party, everybody agrees with everything the government does. But at the end of the day, there are some things that we must defend the country on. We can have our questions. There's nothing wrong having our questions. There's nothing asking for clarification or having a query as a citizen on anything the government does. But when it comes to conspiring with external people who have never been to Dominica, who don't care two hoots about where Dominica is, who are not interested in the welfare of Dominica, but who may have people who are paying them to write stories about Dominica that are negative. And we are participating in it by providing with false information, misinformation, and all sorts of baseless allegations that have all been set aside. It's not right. It's not right. This is our country. Our country. And we all have our children here. We all have our parents here. There are some who have green card, but they go to America, you get green card, you get a problem in America, they send you back. Come back to Dominica. And even if you have a green card and you go to America or citizen in the country, you have family here. So don't, it's not, when Rosie was the leader of the opposition, Rosie would go to the United Kingdom. Rosie would go and speak out bananas and get Bernie and these guys there to ask questions in the British Parliament on Dominica's behalf and Morales' behalf. Rosie would go to Guadeloupe and bring doctors and medication to Dominica to help people. When Rosie went out, or Mike went out of Dominica, they left Dominican politics in Dominica. They will never conspire with external forces to destroy the country. Never. And so we have to avoid this from happening. In respect to who is to succeed me when I demit office, the office of the Prime Minister is not for me to bequeath to anybody. It's not my personal property where I put in a will. It's a matter for the parliamentarians to decide and the party to decide. In respect to who has my favor, everybody has my favor. Because within the party there is a depth of talent that anyone can jump forward and that person will be embraced and so forth. So there's no change of heart or new heart and so on. Everybody has my favor. There's tremendous talent in there. If you want talent, you look to Labour. And I think when I look at the young people who in Labour there, I mean, we're talking about these guys are going to be in there for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so I'll be looking at them from vehicles on my balcony when they'll come to visit me and ask for my counsel on certain matters and so on. But the future is bright for Labour, and so I don't have an issue there. So let us not try to make an issue where there is no such issue there, and so there's no problem at all, not whatsoever. They're different. I try to allow different people to act prime minister so they can get the experience and the exposure. That's what it is. So different people at different times will act so they can get the exposure and get the understanding of how difficult it is to be prime minister, even if it's for one day. Because you never know what a prime minister has to do until they become one. So I let some of these guys act and some they can't wait for scared to come back, but say, boy, that thing's scary there, boy. But not for you at all. But yes, sir. Curtis, last question, Curtis.
Yes. Yeah, my last three questions, sir.
You can come for me today.
You announced that over 2,600 public officers will receive increased salaries by the end of September. By the end of September.
Over 2,900.
900 will get increased salaries. Through the, of course, the program, the reclassification exercise. Prime Minister, how will that affect salary negotiations now between the unions and, of course, the government? So that's the first question. The other one, since we are lighting, what about the program of lighting at Windsor Park Stadium? Where is that program? Program should have ended in July of this year. Can you bring us up to date on what is the position with the lighting program at the Windsor Park? And finally, Prime Minister, with 12 homicides in Dominica for the year so far, what is the position of the police and the government? Are you concerned that these murders are increasing in Dominica at the moment? Thank you very much.
Prime Minister,
And by the way, Matt, sorry. By the way, many of them are firearm related. Yeah, firearm related offenses.
yes, quick question. When do we expect geothermal to become a reality?
Okay. Now, regards to salary negotiations, I don't want to get into the specifics of this. Obviously, one of the main requests of the unions, all unions, was the reclassification exercise, and that was very much anticipated, and we engaged the unions throughout the exercise. And now that we're implementing it, I believe it's great news for so many of the public officers. There are some issues that we continue to discuss with the Police Welfare Association and looking at the other categories of public officers who may not have been positively impacted by the reclassification. So discussions are ongoing with those entities to see how we can address those issues. I don't want to speak for the union, but I would find it strange that the union would want to ask for salary increase on top of 13% and 6%. You know, but it's a discussion we'll need to have it to the triennium. But I'll leave it to this. There's a group of public servants who are the government negotiators, and I don't like to speak about those things before those things happen and so forth. So I'll leave it to them to deal with. The lighting of the stadium, I know Honorable Judge is listening to me, so I'll ask him to call you to give you more details on this. I know you asked me that question last time, so that he can provide you with more details on this. There's some technical issues there. The 12 homicides and most of them firearms, it's an issue we've had, and we've been engaging on our partner, the United States, and I must say that they have made some movements in responding to our concern about the number of firearms coming into the region. What we have done at a government standpoint to mitigate against this is that to put systems at the port of entry, and we expended serious significant funds in putting these scanners at the port of entry, so as to identify those firearms are coming in and reduce the number making its way on the streets in Dominica. Obviously, people find other means of getting those firearms on the streets in Dominica. And so this is the source of it and so on. The police is taking a zero tolerance to this thing. I want to urge people who have illegal firearms, make a way of getting to the police. The police can facilitate you in getting it to them. I know the police have been speaking about working with some groups to get the illegal firearms off the streets. I have said to many people that when you have a firearm, you always run the risk of using it. And when you sell it, you'll be selling it to someone who will come back and kill you, or kill your mother, or kill your brother. And so the possession and the trading of firearms is not for countries like Dominica, because it's too small for this. And we have to learn to resolve our issues through legal means and not through the use of firearms. And so it's incumbent upon all of us in the country to play our part in respect to the presence and the prevalence of firearms in our streets and the utilization of those firearms to commission a crime. But the police is taking a very hard stance on this. But again, crime is a societal problem, and all of us must play our part. There are some strategies that are being employed by the police. I'm not at liberty to discuss this publicly, but certainly this is higher in the police agenda in terms of combating and addressing. The other issue with geothermal, before geothermal, the schedule is that by the end of 2025, we will have access to geothermal energy in Dominica. So we're pushing very hard. We don't speak about it much because we're just working behind the scenes and getting it going. And there will be there'll be an activity in Dominica next month. FS is the next month. A donors conference to look at raising funds for the transmission from Fokole to the north, and that's Portsmouth and so Sugarloaf. So there are a number of things happening there where geothermal is concerned. It is important that we persevere on it. I know people have been saying it's been a long time, but when you look at countries that have pursued renewable energy, especially geothermal, it has taken them a long time, especially a country like ours. And there are many countries in the Caribbean that have attempted to go the route of geothermal and have not gone beyond the exploratory phase. As a matter of fact, some of them were not able to go through the exploratory phases. And we have persevered in Dominica because we understand how important geothermal is to the cost of energy for consumers of electricity and the potential it has for economic activity in Dominica. So we're persevering, and it's something that we have to keep at it. We could have abandoned it after Hurricane Maria because we need the monies. As a matter of fact, one question was posed to me by development partners as to what is our stance on geothermal. Every one of them was shocked at my response when I said, we notwithstanding the impact of the hurricane, we're going to pursue geothermal. And at that time, after the hurricane, we made some $15 million available so we could go to the next stages of the geothermal project and so forth. I want to thank all of you for these very tough questions. I think today was a hard one for me there. I think you guys came ready for me today. You know? But I appreciate the questions. I think they were all relevant questions. I want to say to Dominicans, let's work together. Let's have some little more patience on the Dominic side. We'll be working diligently to get it going. There are a number of things that will be done behind the scenes that we will not speak to you about, but we will continue working on this. It is something that preoccupies the attention of the government, myself personally as Prime Minister, and I will continue to work with Dominic to provide him all the support they need to addressing this issue in the immediate term and in the medium term. So let's all work together, and I have read some of the, I saw some of the songs that were written on Dominic, on social media, and the songs. Yeah. You guys are on social media. You guys are. It's not. And all of the WhatsApp. Yeah, the WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yeah, I reviewed some of them.
Yeah.
I've heard some of them already.
Yeah. But on a serious note, we understand the impact. We understand the inconvenience that affects everybody, and it's something that we need to address in a decisive manner. And so this is what my message to the board was this morning, and to management, certainly. And we will deal with it and so forth. Thank you. God bless everybody. Thank you.